The Russian strategy in Ukraine has shifted drastically over the past few days. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has declared an end to the initial phase of the invasion and has assigned top priority exclusively to the conquest of the Donbas separatist regions in the east. Even more stunning is the public admission by Russian officials that they now seek to drastically reduce their forces around Kyiv. If this is an honest reflection of Russian plans in northern Ukraine, it would mean that the Ukrainian military has effectively emerged victorious in the 2022 Battle of Kyiv. Much has been said in the past month regarding the key reasons for why Ukraine is winning and why Russia is losing the war. These include A. The Russian military's poor training and lack of professionalism, both on and off the battlefield. B. Logistics and supply issues evidenced by looting and reports of widespread hunger and frostbite. C. Poor quality, outdated, and unmaintained military equipment attributed to the corruption in the Russian military. And D. The contrast between the extremely high morale of the Ukrainian population and the extremely low morale of Russian soldiers. As Russian military experts will argue, there was always evidence before the war to expect that each of these developments would emerge to some degree during a large-scale offensive Russian war. However, it has become clear that this is not the whole story. Here are 3 unexpected reasons for why Russia is losing the Ukraine war. Reason number 1, the spring trap. This first reason is unexpected, not so much because it was unpredictable, but more so because it should have dictated the timing of the Russian invasion. The spring trap is a term used to describe the phenomenon in which the melting snow and thawing ground in Russia, Belarus, and especially Ukraine during spring and autumn transforms the countryside into an ocean of impassable mud. It is known by a variety of names: the spring thaw, general mud, or rasputitsa in Russian, which means a time without roads. The historical significance of rasputitsa has made it a cornerstone of Russia's legacy of heroic defensive warfare, having played an essential role in the defeat of foreign invaders at least 3 times in its history. Rasputitsa is credited with having saved Novgorod from being conquered and sacked by the Mongols in the 13th century, for complicating Napoleon Bonaparte's French invasion of Russia in 1812, and most famously for playing a key role in slowing the German advance on Moscow in 1941. In all 3 of these conflicts, Rasputitsa is credited with having been essential to the survival of Russia or the Soviet Union as an independent, sovereign state. So while many experts expected Rasputitsa to play a role in the spring or fall of any military conflict in this region, few would have argued that Putin was willing to launch an offensive military operation during this time frame. Putin is extremely well versed in Russian history, and he has used his in-depth knowledge of it to justify almost every single one of his geopolitical moves since he became president in 2000, including the seizure of Crimea and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. This is one of the primary reasons why our researchers at Dystopia refuse to believe that an invasion would still occur after the month of January had passed without any major Russian incursions into Ukraine. Launching such an attack in February, let alone late February as it transpired, would condense Russian timelines and would risk Putin's army facing the very same fate of Russia's past invaders. Since the beginning of the war, an endless stream of photos displaying expensive Russian military equipment abandoned in the Ukrainian mud has emerged online. Rasputitsa appears to have been critical to the stalling of the Russian convoy north of Kyiv, and it would not be surprising at all if it is attributed great significance when the history of the Ukrainian victory at the Battle of Kyiv is written. Reason number 2, the lack of Russian electronic warfare capabilities. One of the biggest surprises of the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been the notable absence of Russia's supposedly best-in-class electronic warfare capabilities. As early as 2017, Western military experts were arguing that Russia's electronic warfare systems, along with their integrated air defense and anti-access area denial systems, were in fact superior to NATO's equivalent equipment. These systems were considered to be so effective that it prompted Western assessments that claimed the unprecedented period of Western air supremacy was over. However, there was a noted absence of Russian electronic warfare systems on the battlefield at the outset of the conflict in February 2022, with the first major piece of equipment being captured only in late March. Russia's electronic warfare systems primarily target enemy communications, radars, and unmanned aerial vehicles. Russian military expert Sergei Sukhankin has since attributed the stunning success of Ukrainian bayraktar drones directly to Russia's lack of electronic warfare capabilities in Ukraine. Whether Russia's lack of these systems in Ukraine has been a deliberate choice by their military, or whether it is a further symptom of capabilities overestimation, remains to be seen. Reason 3. Lone Russia. The invasion of Ukraine has been a strong litmus test for Russia's alliances. It has demonstrated that China is willing to support Russia diplomatically, and that Belarus is willing to operate as a territorial extension of the Russian Federation. However, the half-hearted support of both states has seriously hindered Russia's overall strategic efforts in Ukraine. Considering the importance of its alliance with Russia, it is quite surprising that China has been unwilling to take an active role in replenishing Russian equipment losses, as the Americans had done during the Second World War. Russian separatists in the Donbass have been spotted with pre-World War I rifles that are over 130 years old, and Russia's stocks of precision-guided missiles and modern tanks are beginning to dwindle. China has done its part in the information war by sending journalists to the Donbass to bolster Russian claims of liberation, but have so far left their allies to their own outdated devices. If China's support for the Russian offensive had mirrored that of the Western support for Ukraine's defense, the balance could have potentially shifted in Russia's favor. Belarus's lack of military involvement in Ukraine is even more unexpected. Belarusian territory has been used as a launch pad for the Russian assault on Kyiv, but the lack of involvement of Belarusian forces has allowed almost unfettered passage of Western-supplied weapons to Ukrainian forces throughout the country. Had a Belarusian force opened a new front around Lutsk or Lviv, Western supplies of anti-tank and anti-aircraft weapons would have been seriously threatened. If combined with the Russian assault from the separatist region of Transnistria, such an offensive could have essentially split Ukraine in two, placed Odessa under siege, and isolated the majority of the Ukrainian military in the east of the country. It is easy to assign blame for the failing Russian invasion squarely on Russian incompetence in strategic planning and operational execution, but that would be a disservice to the truly heroic nature of Ukraine's defense. "8 years of NATO training and an unwavering resolve to repel the invader has created the cornerstones of a new Ukrainian national identity that will last for decades, if not centuries." This has been 3 unexpected reasons for why Russia is losing the Ukraine war. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.